So we are now live. Good morning, Facebook universe, YouTube universe. Hector Gomez, good morning. Sam Tobias, good morning. Jason Paniagua, Wes Perkins, welcome in. Disappointing morning after the Astros loss. Wasn't even any intrigue, really. It got ugly quickly. Foam Foot 420, welcome in. Yeah, I think I went to sleep at after the 6th inning. Ralph Balderas, good morning. Yeah, I got this weird thing, and I guess I'm a sore loser. I don't stick around till when I'm very invested in a sporting event. I don't stick around to watch the other team celebrate. It just hurts too much. So I mean, good morning. I'm with the Dallas Cowboys, all season long. But whenever they're eliminated. If I'm going to have to watch that other team celebrate if it's in the playoffs, I can't do it. It just hurts too much. Steve Duraco, Tracy Bogert, welcome in. Duel. Welcome in on a Wednesday morning. As Marlon Brando said at the end of the movie Apocalypse Now, the horror, as last night, the Houston Astros not only lose Game 6, but thank you, Dave Ayler, for accentuating my pain and anguish. They not only lose last night, the Houston Astros are annihilated by the Atlanta Braves. It wasn't even close. And very, very quickly it got out of hand. There wasn't even that intrigue that goes, late into the innings where you think the Astros had a shot. None of that. And maybe that was merciful because let me go to bed early. I wasn't going to stick around and watch the Atlanta Braves celebrate. Welcome in. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Shannon, when did you go to bed last night?
I think they were up 3-0. I think about through the 4th inning. I thought, again, I've done this before where the Astros were down. I went to bed and I woke up and they were victorious. So yeah, maybe that would work. And I'd rather that take place than kind of be like you and stay up and kind of watch a dead horse continue to be kicked throughout the evening. But I got to be honest, Chris, I'm an Astros fan. I really enjoy that team. But to me, it's still baseball. I don't feel it in the way I feel any sort of loss from the University of Texas, any sort of loss by the way of the Cowboys.
Sure.
So I'm okay this morning. I'm all right. Okay.
And I get that. And I, on a certain level, I understand agree and feel what you're feeling. My number one team is the Dallas Cowboys. Very, very close to them, San Antonio Spurs. My college, USC. So yeah, when those teams lose, it hurts. But I over the years, especially in the modern era of the Houston Astros, when they were the worst team in the league, when Sports Illustrated ran that cover, I think in 2013, and said, "Here are your 2017 World Series champions." And I thought, "Are you kidding me? I'm going to save this issue." And then this Astros team really, really grew on me with Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman and Carlos Correa, George Springer when he was still there. Winning that World Series in 2017, then the cheating scandal, then it kind of became the Houston Astros against the world. And I was kind of invested in that. I felt bad for the Astros and people like Jose Altuve being hated on stadium after stadium after stadium. So I'm not without sadness and a sense of loss this morning. But I have to be a big man here and say congratulations to the Atlanta Braves. Congratulations to Braves fans. Congratulations to baseball fans who were pulling for the Braves for reasons other than Astros hatred. If you were pulling for the Braves because you hate the Astros, then I don't congratulate you. But if you're pulling for the Braves for the right reasons, then congratulations.
Specifically, if you're pulling for the Braves and you're also an Atlanta Falcons fan, because even though the game was over after the third inning when they were up 3-0, even though it was sealed in the fifth inning when they went up 6-0, and even though it took until the very last out for Atlanta fans to believe that they had actually won, because they've seen it happen before, thanks to a man named Tom Brady, where you think you have victory, but you certainly don't, because a man named Tom Brady can come back and flip the scoreboard on you. And baseball being baseball, that could have been a thing that the Astros did. They decided not to last night. It was very nice of them to give the Braves this win. But I'm happy for fans that are actually fans.
Yes.
And not really here for so although there has not been a lot of hate I've seen this morning.
True. Yeah. And I haven't looked at a lot of it. And I kind of expected a little more. But again, I want to say this as well. In sports, the Atlanta Braves story this year, sub 500 at the All-Star break, I believe still sub 500 in August. They made these mid-season acquisitions, including Jorge Soler, who was the most valuable player, who we kind of knew something was up when he hit a home run in the very first at-bat of this World Series. First time that's ever happened. And you and I both speculated maybe this Atlanta Braves team is a team of destiny, and it turned out they were. So, and by all accounts, Brian Snitker, the manager of the Braves, seems like a very good man. It was interesting. He and Dusty Baker, the oldest managing duo in World Series history. Brian Snitker, 66 years old. Dusty Baker, 72 years old. So it's congratulations. 7-0 last night. The Atlanta Braves win Game 6, win the World Series, eliminate the Houston Astros. So, but the good news is, Shannon, now we can really focus more on football as you should in the fall. Yeah. So whenever the Astros or the Rangers, I like the Rangers too. I like I'm more of an Astros fan than a Rangers fan. Whenever they're not in the postseason, it's like, all right, I'll watch it for the intrigue of October baseball. And now we're in November, but fall is for football. Yeah. If we're going to be honest.
For you and I, we can now watch Spurs Mavericks, or as I'll say, Maverick Spurs.
Spurs Mavericks.
Tonight without having to worry about flipping any channels or feel like, for your case, working the game.
Yeah.
I feel like you miss something if you're too locked into work. So small wins, small victories.
True. Right. Yeah. Look at the glass half full. And speaking of glass half full, I saw Dusty Baker's post-game interview, and actually I want to make sure I'm going to wait on that, because I know it's going to appear a little bit later. But I will say this: Dusty was so gracious in defeat, and I just love his attitude. And we'll get you some more Dusty Baker a little bit later in the show. You did mention, Shannon, the Spurs versus the Mavericks tonight at the AT&T Center. The voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening, going to join us in the 8 o'clock hour. As he always does, we are thrilled and privileged to have him every Wednesday. And so we'll have him tonight on a Spurs game night. And whenever we talk to Bill, obviously we talk about the rest of the NBA. He was the longtime voice of the Texas Longhorns. So we'll talk Texas Longhorns football and more with him. So many other things, Shannon, that we're going to get into this morning. The worst of which, and this happens occasionally in the world of sports, this happens occasionally in life, but just a horrible tragedy. Henry Ruggs III, first-round draft pick, wide receiver of the LA Raiders. We didn't even know about this on the show yesterday because it happened at about 3:30 a.m. Las Vegas time, which would have been, I guess, 5:39. It was 3:39 reportedly yesterday morning. Apparently driving impaired, apparently driving under the influence. He rear ends another vehicle. A woman was killed. And very interestingly, the LA Raiders, and he was a number one first-round draft pick, but the Raiders just did not wait at all. They didn't wait 24 hours. They did it pretty quickly. They released him yesterday. He faces possible jail time of 2 to 20 years for this. Amazing. And the worst of all, of course, the woman who lost her life. But yep. Shannon, it's amazing how quickly lives can change in the blink of an eye.
Yeah. And was this an off-week situation? Are they on a bye?
That's a good question. I'll look that up.
But
this is something I want to talk about with you coming up as well, Shannon. This was in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Some people have said you put an NFL or an NBA franchise in Las Vegas and you give these 20-something millionaires the playground that is Las Vegas, that these things will happen. I just saw the Raiders. I was just scrolling through. I mean, they do not have a bye, and I was just scrolling too quickly. They're at New York against the Giants. Okay. New York Giants high noon on Sunday. But I mean, obviously these things happen when it's not in Las Vegas. But the fact that it's Vegas, you wonder if the level of temptation for young 20-something millionaires might be quite a bit to handle, and maybe something that teams like the Raiders have to focus even more on for dealing with their players year in, year out.
Yeah, we'll get to this on the other side here. Let's pause for a moment for some cash. 620. We do this throughout the day on both stations. Listen now for your keyword and chance to win $1,000.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword cash to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's cash to 200-200.
Keyword of this hour is cash. Your shot at $1,000. Make sure you text that to 200-200. Chris, I got to applaud the Raiders for being swift with this. I think it was the right move to make, especially considering what they just came off of the John Gruden situation. You know, this is just something else on top of it. And I think, again, it's even, and it's horrible that a life was lost for this, but even had that not occurred, if it was just an accident, I think it still needs to be something that is taken swift action like this to say that we no tolerance policy here. And it's, I asked about a bye week because people always joke the Cowboys, they seem to get into similar situations. I think there was one just a couple weeks ago. Luckily no one was really injured, but you just think these, and I know they're millionaires and they have really nice cars and they really love to drive them, but you think at least during the season, especially when so many of these players, they don't live in the cities they play in full time, right? They live in a condo, they live in an apartment, they live near a practice facility. So they don't have all the bells and whistles that they might have at their McMansion, wherever that is in the U.S. So they do go out, and that's where they do have their fun. So I don't know why teams in this day and age where like Uber and Lyft are so popular, why the league has yet to partner with one of those and give players and say, I know you don't want to spend your millions on getting an Uber for whatever reason, or you want to drive your fancy car, but to use the league's money and their investment in this product and please be safe.
It's a great idea. It's a great, innovative idea. And, especially in Las Vegas, but I agree, Shannon, every franchise, NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, hockey, soccer, should have just regular meetings with their players. And especially when something like this happens, and say, look, we know you're 20 something and we know 20 something's party, but get an Uber. Because I mean, every time something like this happens and someone is killed by a drunk driver, that drunk driver did not get behind the wheel thinking, oh, I can't handle this. That drunk driver believed, I got this. I've driven drunk 100 times. I can do this one more time. And what we had was just a horrible tragedy and a loss of life. I think I heard the woman who was killed was 23 years old. My God, I had her entire life ahead of her. It's a god awful tragedy. And even though it's a sports story, I mean, it's a teachable moment for all of us, a cautionary tale for all of us. You know, we say this a lot. Please enjoy your alcohol responsibly. And if you don't, this kind of thing can happen.
And I know a lot of stadiums, specifically like DKR, they sell beer, they sell wine. They stopped selling, I think, at the end of the third quarter, start of the fourth quarter. And then they also have stands around where if you drop your keys, or hey, they market, make sure you have a safe ride home. If you need an Uber, here's where you get, like, they market that to fans like crazy. I don't know why they don't turn around and do that to the players as well.
Well, we got so much to talk about this morning, Shannon. We'll talk about Henry Ruggs more. We'll talk about the NFL trade deadline, what happened, what didn't happen. Scottie Pippen, we learned yesterday, has even more issues about Michael Jordan. We'll talk about that. We'll talk World Series. Shannon and I and Dave Ayler were all about one of the things we do on this show, and it's when we should do it. We've got loyal listeners, and even non-loyal listeners are entitled. We give shout-outs. If somebody wants a shout out, we're happy to give a shout out. And often that's like a birthday shout out for somebody who one of our listeners loves. Shannon and I got a message this morning from our good friend Clint Proctor, who is a regular listener. We love Clint, a Texas Tech guy. Clint is in the hospital this morning with his dad. His dad is having some health issues. They're in the ICU listening right now. And Clint wrote us and said, my dad and I bonded over sports. Would you mention him today on the show? Tell him he is loved. Clint wants to tell his dad how much he loves him. And it is interesting how sports bond us with parents, with fathers, with mothers, with sisters, with brothers, with best friends. It's one of the things that we share together. And at a moment like this that I know is very difficult for Clint and his dad, together in a hospital right now, Clint wanted to use this vehicle, this platform, this microphone to tell his dad that he loves him. And Shannon, I think there's nothing better that we can do at this moment than say, Clint, and to your dad. And oh, by the way, I got his dad's name. I want to mention his dad's name. His dad's name is Kendall. So Kendall Proctor, Clint loves you. We love you. We wish you health and recovery and healing, and we hope you feel a lot better.
Yeah. Thoughts and definitely prayers to the Proctor family. And, Chris and I want to thank you for listening each morning and making us a part of your family's lives. Because I think sometimes, I know it gets lost on me sometimes. I mean, I'm staring at Chris through a video screen. And it just feels like we're having a conversation, which is part of what makes this job so much fun. We just sit here talking sports. We don't always know who we're talking to. So we appreciate the message and we appreciate you listening.
And a lot of people on Facebook Live are saying prayers for Mr. Kendall Proctor, and our prayers go out as well. Quick break. High five play of the day. NFL, college football, trade deadline, World Series, sadly. NBA, Spurs and Mavericks tonight. Gosh, there's so much going on in the world of sports. Salty Shakedown in the 7 o'clock hour. Sports history, sports birthdays. The great Bill Schoening, the voice of the Spurs, going to join us just after 8 o'clock. And more chances for you to win $1,000 all morning and all day long. We'll meet Dave Ayler, our soundscape stylist, coming up. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney. You're listening to the Chris Duel Show. All right. Hang in there, Clint. We're praying for you and your dad and thinking about you, man. And I appreciate everybody else in here sending their prayers, their thoughts to Clint and his dad. All right. I am in dire need of coffee. One last look while I go get coffee. Oh, you like my Spurs Dia de los Muertos shirt? Thank you. Cardboard Breggy. We needed a little more. We needed a little more from you throughout the series, Cardboard Breggy. I'm just saying. Be right back. Woo! Cardboard Breggy, ladies and gentlemen. Probably retire you for the off season. We do have Bryn Forbes, who does have a mask. Mask him off. I appreciate that Brent is wearing a mask. Yeah, Jesse Bratton. Didn't happen for Altuve or any of them last night. Yeah, Henry says, I love how sports brings people together. And, that's one of the big moments and centerpieces of the movie Field of Dreams. How, Ray Kinsella, the the Kevin Costner character. It's early in the morning. My caffeine hasn't kicked in yet. Maybe I should drink more. The Kevin Costner character, Ray Kinsella, in Field of Dreams, wants to build that baseball field in the cornfield so that he can bring shoeless Joe Jackson back for his dad because he refused to play catch with his dad. It's as simple as that. And I think why that movie resonated with so many people and why it resonates with me, it's my favorite movie ever, is sports. We talk about it here. We love it. It brings people together. It bonds people. It divides people. We have arguments and conversations about it. So, yeah, Sam, not only is it supposed to rain today in San Antonio, apparently tonight, like in the 9 o'clock hour, there's a front coming in and temperatures are going to drop into the low 50s. In fact, I might even pull up the Weather Channel hourly forecast here. So, yeah, I got to remember to wear something warm when I go to the Spurs game tonight. Yeah, temps are going to go down. It's 68 now. It's going to be 69 this morning. But by the afternoon, 64 and rainy. Evening, 56 and rainy. Overnight, 53 and rainy. And let me go look at an hourly. So according to this, and this is for San Antonio, temperatures will peak at 70 degrees at 11 a.m. and then start going down. 65 by 3 p.m., 59 by 8 p.m., midnight 55 and rain, and a low of 52 by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So, yeah, so right now 68 in San Antonio. At this time tomorrow, about 52. Chris Gonzalez, I see you tweeted me, and I know you're in here on Facebook Live a lot. Chris writes, the Astros have scored the majority of their runs before the fifth inning, 48 runs compared to 39 of their opponents, but only 30 runs have been scored from the sixth inning on. In that same time, opponents have scored 51 runs from the sixth inning on. It's a big stat, Chris. So clearly, when the Astros won, they would score early, and that did not happen last night. Simone Biles, the gymnast, tweeting last night, I still love the Astros, with an orange heart. I will I'll put that in the comments here in case anybody wants to go look at it. Just kind of cool.
Back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney.
The morning after, we had high hopes. I had high hopes. You probably had high hopes for the Houston Astros last night. And it was one of those days, I just kept looking at the clock. Shannon, I told you this yesterday. It was like 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, all right, 7:09. I'm counting the hours. I got 11 hours till 7. It's like all day. I took my little nap, got up at like 3:09. I was like, 4 hours. Here we go. Woo! It's like, all right, I got to have my dinner done. I got to have all my chores done. I got to be in place for first pitch. And, it was just ugly early. I think you said you went to bed at 3-0. I think I went to bed at 6-0 after like 5 or 6 innings. And 7-0. Atlanta Braves win. Before we move on, before we go to the high five play of the day, let's meet our soundscape stylist. You see him on the live video feed. If you're new to the show, we're streaming live video across a bunch of platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Ticket 760, AM 1300, The Zone's Facebook pages, the Twitter pages of AM 1300, The Zone, and Ticket 760. He is the one, the only, the lovely, the talented Dave Ayler. How are you this morning?
Chris, hurting from the Astros loss a little bit, but it's Braves played a good series. You know, got to hand it to them. They're gracious winners too.
Yeah.
So they have a great team. But now the big question is, you know, what do the Astros do now? What are they going to do about Correa? You know, is it going to take less money to stay in Astroland, and because the Astros are going to be good for a while.
Yeah, you would think.
You know, so it's if he takes less money, he could stay with her, and they could be back in the World Series next year.
This morning I was watching Carlos Correa's post-game comments, and it was interesting. Somebody asked him, you know, your final at bat in the 9th inning, Carlos, did it go through your mind that this might be your last at bat as an Astro? And it was interesting to hear him, and maybe we'll grab that audio later in the show, because at first he was going to give a standard baseball answer. At first he started saying, he said, my only thought at that at bat was, and he was going to say a cliche, was getting a hit, which is what you're supposed to say. Even if it's true or not true. But then he stopped and he said, you know, I've been with this organization for 7 years. We've done a lot of things together. I have a lot of friends in this organization. He said, so yeah, I was thinking about that. So clearly, Dave and Shannon and Carlos Correa's head going into this offseason when he will be a free agent, where there will be a lot of teams wanting to throw a lot of money at him. And reportedly, the Yankees are one of those teams, and the LA Angels in the same division as the Astros are one of those teams. Clearly, it's on his mind, and it was on his mind in that final at-bat last night at Minute Maid Park that Carlos Correa's days as a Houston Astro may be over.
You know, the Yankees don't need another big contract on their payroll.
I know.
The A's, or not the A's, but the Angels, I can see.
Yeah,
but
with Mike Trout and Ohtani and the A's, the Angels. If the Angels add a couple of big bats and players, all of a sudden the LA Angels could become a force to be reckoned with. They've already got 2 of the best players in baseball on that roster. I need to forget about the Astros. You know what'll make me happier? Well, by the way, I did, Shannon, before one more Astros thing. During the break, I was just, it appeared on my Twitter feed, Simone Biles, the greatest gymnast perhaps in history, Olympic gymnast Simone Biles last night after the Astros loss, in all caps on Twitter, tweeted out, I still love the Astros, with an orange heart emoji. So I think that's pretty cool that she's one of the biggest athletes to come out of Houston ever. And for her to show her love for the Astros in defeat is a cool thing.
She's certainly H-Town proud, Texas proud. So she makes us proud, though.
Yeah.
It's not,
Good for her. Speaking of it, we're not done with the Astros yet, I don't think, because it's time for the High Five Play of the Day, appropriately sponsored by High Five, 2 locations in the Austin area. Now that we can focus more exclusively on football and or NBA basketball, you could watch Spurs Mavericks tonight at one of the 2 High Five locations in the Austin area with all those big screen TVs.
An all-night happy hour on a Wednesday.
Ooh, you had me at all-night happy hour. Great drinks, great food, games, bowling, laser tag, axe throwing. Those are the 3 I always reference, Shannon. What else have you seen at High Five? What other
they've got some
games?
darts if you're good at darts. I've always been afraid to try darts for the first time in public just because you never know how that's going to go. I mean, the first time I threw an axe at a High Five, it may or may not have hit the ceiling. May or may not have. But they've also got the virtual Top Golf where not only you can play Top Golf or courses from around the world, but zombie dodgeball, which is great fun with the family. I highly suggest it. Yes, we are sticking with the Astros, and we just talked about Correa, how he may be leaving for a pot of gold at the end of whatever rainbow and wherever that rainbow takes him to. Or the Astros may find some money somewhere. Not that Mattress Mac won any that he could fork over. But another guy kind of in question, he did say last night he has some unfinished business following this World Series loss. A lot of people hope he sticks around. A lot of people love him. We love him too. Dusty Baker, we kind of mentioned this earlier, that he was gracious in the moments of defeat. And so we want to give a high five to him for everything he's done for the Astros. The moves he's made have been great. Him coming into the situation he did, where obviously it's a great team, but there's a lot of crap that came with that team, and he had to bear the brunt of it being the manager. And I think he did a great job. And last night, when there are unfortunately a lot of people who can't stand to lose and lose graciously, he did an exceptional job. So we want to play you some of his post-game presser for you right now.
First, I'd like to, above all, just say congratulations to Brian Snitker and the Braves and the town of Atlanta. And yeah, it's tough, but you know something, you gotta keep on, keep on trucking that, and that gives you even more incentive next year. It's tough to take now, but this too shall pass. I mean, it really hurts, but it's over.
High five, Dusty Baker. 72 years old, killing it. As an Astros fan, I hope you stick around. I hope you come back. I hope the Astros bring you back. And, of course, I hope that next year is your year and you get to be the one on the other side talking about victory instead of defeat at the podium post-World Series.
One of the subsequent things Dusty Baker said after that soundbite we just heard, he said, last year – in the ALCS, we came up 1 game shy against the Tampa Bay Rays. The Astros fell down 3-1 in that series and took it to a game 6. And he goes, and this year, we come 2 games shy of winning the World Series. He said, so I guess we're making progress. I mean, I just loved the glass half full. I mean, as we just heard and you just said, I agree. Dusty Baker, absolutely gracious in defeat. And again, that's a sports life lesson we can all learn for our lives. But secondly, glass half full. It's like, you know what? We were better this year than we were last year. And oh, by the way, we lost George Springer. He didn't say that. I'm saying that. And oh, by the way, a year ago, you lost Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander, your 2 aces. And you're probably going to lose Carlos Correa, as Dave Ayler brought up a few minutes ago. But I was listening to MLB, the MLB network last night before the game because I was all geeked up for the game. And they were mentioning even if Correa leaves, that means the Astros are going to have a lot of money. And there's apparently 3 or 4 really good, not Correa level, but really good shortstops out there on the free agent market. So theoretically, here the Astros absorbed the loss of Springer. They absorbed the loss of Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander. They were without Lance McCullers Jr. throughout this World Series and most of the ALCS, and came a game away from forcing a game 7. If they lose Correa to free agency, and I think most people believe they will, that they can't give him the kind of money somebody else is going to throw at him, and still pay Altuve and still pay Bregman and everybody else they're paying. Then. If they do what they've done in the last few years and be very, very good at player personnel and go out and sign a really good shortstop, then You know, they can get a little pitching in the mix for next year, and they should still be a force to be reckoned with next year.
Now, whether or not he stays an Astro goes elsewhere, do you think he's still going to make a ton of money?
Oh, yeah.
A ton of money, an unimaginable amount of money. But given the slump he had in the World Series, did he shave off a couple of millions of his next potential contract, you think? Because it's all fine and dandy doing it during the regular season.
Yeah.
And some of those early postseason games. But World Series, hello?
Yeah.
Are we going to see him on milk cartons this morning?
It's a great question. Yeah, you're right. I do wonder that. I mean, and Major League Baseball teams, you know, covet Carlos Correa, and for a lot of reasons. But you make the great when the Astros needed him most throughout this, you know, and again, how ironic he started these postseason games, making big plays, pointing at his watch, saying it's my time, it's my time, it's my time. That became a gesture of his headed into the World Series, and then we never saw that in the World Series because he never had a big moment, really, in the World Series. So I do wonder that. You know, Alex Rodriguez said on the Fox pregame show before the World Series that he believes Carlos Correa is going to become baseball's first $400 million man. You wonder if that $400 million might be
$399.
$399. Exactly.
And Chris, you're forgetting that the biggest part of looking at the glass half full is at least the Astros didn't lose to the Dodgers.
Thank you. Yes. And of all the teams that could have won this World Series, number one, I don't like the Dodgers, and especially that dirtbag Joe Kelly, pitcher of the Dodgers, who tried to maim Astros, throwing pitches at them last year. But yeah, I wouldn't have been happy if the Dodgers won it. I wouldn't have been happy if the Yankees somehow won the series, if they won their one-game playoff against Boston and then went on a tear. I would not have been happy if the Boston Red Sox won it. I'm just kind of done with Boston area sports for the time being. Anybody else, and I know, Dave, you don't like the San Francisco Giants that much. I'd have been okay with it because they rose up and had an amazing year and won more games than anybody else this year.
Their coach is going to win Coach of the Year, so
yeah,
they'll get something out of it.
Yeah, the Tampa Bay Rays, who came up short against the Dodgers last year, they're a cool team. I'd have been okay with, and I really thought your World Series was going to be Dodgers versus Tampa Bay Rays. So, yeah.
Half full.
Glass half full. It's a good thing we don't drink this early in the morning, Shannon, because I'd be.
We don't?
I don't. Well, you know,
that glass will be all empty.
Management frowns upon it. I know that. They've never said no.
I think I put my drink in a Yeti because I want it to be cold.
They've never said no drinking in the morning, but I'm bummed out. I'm in one of those, and I mentioned this earlier, and I am this way. When I'm invested in a team and I know they're going to lose in the playoffs or in a championship game, I cannot. I don't inflict it upon myself. I don't stick around to watch the other team celebrate. It's like, no. It's like Cowboys games throughout the season. I stay if the Cowboys are getting blown out in the regular season, I stick around. It's like, all right, I want to see. Okay, they're lifting Dak for Cooper Rush. Let's see how he can do, whatever. But if it's playoffs or an elimination game, and we've had a lot of those, it's Cowboys versus either Eagles or Washington or Giants on the final day of the regular season, and the winner goes to the playoffs and the loser does not. If the Cowboys are losing in the fourth quarter and I know they're going to lose the game, I am not sticking around to see that other team celebrate. So no, I did not stick around last night to watch. I watched replays this morning, but not. I was hurting too bad, not in real time.
Yeah, I get that. And even sometimes, like college football play championships and things like that, I don't even stay whether I was invested in the final round. I just watch the game to see who wins. I don't need to see all the trophy and all the extra
crystal ball,
whatever. It also feels like from the time they win the game to the time they actually get the trophy takes way too long. Not my thing. I want it to be more like in soccer, where it's like game, whistle blows, they get in line, they get their medals, and then off they go. But we can make you happy though, because a lot of times, right, where we are in the year of football, Cowboys are usually sitting at a 500 or
Yeah.
sub 500. And so we're already thinking about, closer, more on basketball, more on something else, looking ahead. And the Cowboys, sir, they've only lost one game, and now they get to go and play Denver, a Von Miller-less Denver.
Yes.
Just in time. So there's that for you to look forward to.
And we did hear yesterday from Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy. He expects Dak to be a full go for practice on Thursday when they practice in full pads. So we're hoping Dak comes back. You brought up college football a second ago, Shannon, and we will get into it.
Yeah.
In fact, we'll do that in the next hour, in the next half hour. The college football playoff rankings were released yesterday. Your top 4 in order: 1, Georgia; 2, Alabama; 3, Michigan State; 4, Oregon.
Yeah.
Everybody else on the outside looking in, I'll give you 5, 6, 7, 8. Ohio State, Cincinnati, Michigan, and Oklahoma. Oklahoma down at number 8. Oklahoma 9-0. They are 8. Wake Forest 8-0. They are number 9.
Yeah, Chris, there's a lot to be discussed here, so we'll do it in the next half hour. But for all those listening, if you could tweet us or post on the video feed or even give us a call, 1-800-707-9760. I'd love to know your top 4, because I think it's all kinds of messed up right now from all 25 down. So give us your top 4 if you've got them.
Let's see. I go UTSA. Cincinnati's undefeated. Wake Forest is undefeated. And I guess Georgia. I guess I'll put Georgia in there. And I want to ask you, Shannon, if Georgia meets Alabama in the SEC championship game and Georgia wins that game, is Alabama still going to the playoff? Probably, because they're Alabama and they get whatever they want.
Yeah.
They're the chosen ones.
Yeah.
Ugh. I'm sick of them. Sick of Alabama, even though Charlie Parker is right down the hallway. Big Alabama partisan over at WOAI in San Antonio. All right. A gazillion things to talk about. We talked a lot of World Series and Astros. Thank you, sir. I read the clock wrong. Jose Moreno, bang the can slowly. That was funny. I give you that. That was funny. Yeah, so I have a rundown. The out time on that segment, which I screwed up, was 6:54:10. I was looking at 7:55:10. I thought I had a minute left. I did not. Read the darn rundown.
You would have it highlighted.
I know. I was looking at the bottom of the page. I was looking at 7:55:10. It's like, oh, I'm good until 55:10. No. I'm still distraught over the Astros loss, clearly. Here's your big 7 o'clock hour. Contest. Get out at 7:27. Sports history, sports birthday, salty shakedown. And we'll see if I screw up the top of the next hour. All right. Based on that performance, I think I need more coffee. Beth Settle, good morning. Tough morning, Beth. Astros lose 7-0. I went to bed. I think it was 6-0. At about 9:30 last night. I think it was after about 6 innings. Coffee time. All right, let's see. I gave you cardboard breggy last time. Oh, I know. Do this. Coming up, in the 8 o'clock hour will be Bill Schoening. Bill Schoening on the right. No, on the left. On my right. On your left. Bill Schoening, the voice of the Spurs, going to join us coming up here at 8:05. I'm going to add one more. And this morning when we talked to Bill, Bill will be on the phone, but he's not right now, but he will be. All right. Thank you, Mike Taylor. Thank you for sitting in. All right, we'll talk college football rankings here. Little NFL. Let's see here. Here we come.
This is the Chris Duel Show. Now, Chris Duel.
We sift through the ashes of last night's Houston Astros loss to the Atlanta Braves in the World Series, but we shall move on to football, and we shall overcome, and we shall get over it. It just might take a while. I'm still trying to get over Kawhi Leonard, but I'm working on it, and this might be the day. Welcome in. Thank you, Kawhi. Thank you, Dave Ayler, for the Kawhi laugh. Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. We're going to make it a good Wednesday anyway. We will move on. As Shannon mentioned, the Cowboys are playing great football. We've got a college football. Thank you, Jimma. We got a college football playoff ranking to discuss, and we shall do that. We got NBA basketball. We've got a disgruntled, as always, Scottie Pippen making some noise. We're going to get to all that coming up in just a few minutes at 7:20. Your chance to win $1,000 again. It's the Grand in Your Hand cash contest. We do it all day long until 9:20 at night on the 20s. We'll do it at 7:20. We'll do it at 8:20. A little bit later this half hour, Shannon's Salty Shakedown. Will there be any monkeys involved? And will those monkeys attack anybody? And I look forward to tomorrow's Steve Sarkisian media availability, where I imagine there will be a monkey question or two, but we learned about the special teams coach, his stripper wife, and the monkey attacking a child on Halloween. That was yesterday's Salty Shakedown, which wound up carrying us into the whole 8 o'clock hour. So God help us all. We'll see what Shannon has come up with this morning. Sports history, sports birthdays. Bill Schoening on a game night, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs. We'll talk Spurs NBA with him. We always talk Longhorn football as well, as he was the longtime voice of the Texas Longhorns before he became voice of the Spurs 21 years ago. And Shannon, and I guess it'll lead us into our discussion on the college football playoff rankings. The college football playoff rankings is the subject of our poll question this morning.
Yeah, so the first college football playoff rankings came out last night and led to much discussion. So we're asking today how you feel about those rankings. Are they spot on, a little bit flawed, way off, or an abomination? Currently tied for the lead in our poll today, way off and an abomination.
Ooh.
And Chris, I immediately did a poll of my own last night where I was gauging whether people liked BCS or college football playoff. Tanner Carlson, good friend of the show, noted that he would prefer the BCS system with a college football playoff. So use the BCS rankings and then have a playoff, which I agree with, but that's not something that's ever been in our reality. But really tight on what they like as far as that voting is going right now. I think prior to last night's release of the top 25, I was liking the college football playoff. I mean, there has been debates throughout the years, but lots to question here in this top 25 that we got last night.
Yes, and let's dive right into it. And Shannon, as you mentioned, if anybody wants to sound off on the college football playoff rankings or anything we're talking about, World Series result last night, NFL, Henry Ruggs, the horrible traffic accident that took the life of a young woman in Las Vegas. We'll get into the Scottie Pippen thing, NBA, and more. Our phone number is 800-707-9760, 800-707-9760. You are welcome to call at any time. And Shannon, you posed a great question, and we'll ask it of our listeners, and I'll give you mine coming up as well. It's, if you have an issue with this college football playoff ranking, then what would you rank? Who do you have in the top 4 and even beyond? And we'll get into that. But again, for people just tuning in right now, to recap, the college football playoff rankings released yesterday early in the evening. Number 1, Georgia. They're 8-0. Number 2, Alabama, of course, because it's the law. They're 7-1. Number 3, Michigan State, 8-0, coming off the win over then undefeated Michigan. And the 4th team would be Oregon at 7-1. On the outside looking in, 5, Ohio State, 7-1. 6, Cincinnati, 8-0. 7, Michigan, just lost to Michigan State, 7-1. Number 8, Oklahoma, undefeated at 9-0. Number 9, Wake Forest, undefeated at 8-0. And at number 10, Notre Dame at 7-1. Shannon, let's start with a couple of questions for you. What do you like about this ranking, and what do you dislike about this ranking?
Chris, the only thing I like about this ranking is Georgia at number 1. I think they got it right.
Yes,
I think that is one that we can all agree on. They should be number 1. And I understand that these are human, and so there are human errors and there are human thoughts and feelings, even though feelings should not be a part of it. You can't say that there aren't any feelings going into any of this. They have to think about the wins and losses, the strength of schedule at the beginning of the season, what the actual strength of schedule ends up being, the quality wins, the losses and how they lost and who they lost to. And I don't know that a lot of that took place because, as you mentioned, number 2, Alabama. Now, the team they lost to, Texas A&M, has been put at number 14 in this poll. They are a 2-loss team, so I kind of agree with that position. I've got my own top 25. I've got Texas A&M at 16.
Okay.
So I kind of agree with Texas A&M's placement. But to have Alabama in front of an undefeated Michigan State, to have Alabama in front of number 4, Oregon, whose loss came just a recent loss. They got a huge win over number 5, who you have in this poll, Ohio State. I don't know how you don't have them higher. And I don't know how you leave an Ohio State out whose loss was to Oregon, who you have in the top 4, how you have them ahead of Alabama when Alabama's loss came to a number 14.
All great points.
Other than they are Alabama, it is Nick Saban. We're going to get attention because people are going to hate on us, but that's good because we're going to get attention. This seems more like a money grab than a legit ranking when you have Alabama at number 2.
Okay, and since you went to Alabama, I want to ask you this question, and I'll tell you what I think about this question. Most people believe Alabama and Georgia are destined for the SEC championship game. Georgia's 8-0. Georgia's just a phenom. They've given up like 23 points all year. They're insane. They're the best team in the country. I agree with you on that. Alabama at number 2, I disagree, but they're 7-1. Georgia's 8-0. Let's assume, Shannon, Georgia and Alabama play in the SEC championship game, and Georgia wins, handing Alabama its second loss. And what if Michigan State is still with no losses, and Cincinnati and Oklahoma and Wake Forest? And then you've got quality teams with one loss, like Oregon, like Ohio State, currently like Michigan, even though Michigan disappointed. They had a big lead on Michigan State, let it get away. Their one loss is to a team in the playoffs. So Michigan, if they continue to win out, and I know they got a big game coming up against Ohio State. So whoever wins that Ohio State-Michigan game, if they've got one loss at the end of the year and Alabama has 2 because they lose in the SEC championship game to Georgia, I got a bad feeling, Shannon, just the way we always see it play out, this love for Alabama. And yes, a lot of this love for Alabama has been earned over the years by Alabama, but that's over the years. This is a whole new season. These are new kids. This is a new construct. It will be abomination is one of our choices. If Alabama loses to Georgia in the SEC championship game, and most people believe they will, and they still get into a 14 playoff after that, and there's going to be one-loss teams like an Ohio State, like a Michigan, maybe like an Oklahoma on the outside looking in, that would be an abomination in my view.
I mean, this is the argument for expansion, right? Because people believe if you get expansion to where you want it to be, you would have the teams of the Power 5 who win their conference championship, whether it's through an actual game or just end of the season, they get automatic bids. And then you would look at, to fill the rest of the space, the regular season and where teams stack up, and don't take into account necessarily a team that may have lost in its conference championship, like a Georgia or an Alabama. In this case, with where we are, where it is right now, we only have 4. If Alabama loses to Georgia, you can absolutely there will be I think people would probably like what do you call it when they don't watch? They protest boycott the college because you cannot put Alabama in as a 2-loss team again when you're ranking the team that they lost to in the back half of your rankings. When you do have the Oregons and the Ohio States and the potentially Michigans and the potentially undefeated Michigan States in there, and at the same time, if Alabama wins that game over Georgia, you can't be knocking Georgia out of the top 4 in favor for an Alabama when that Alabama loss came during the regular season, in my opinion. But again, I think this more than anything, if there was ever an argument to expand the playoff, I think what they did last night is case enough.
Well, and again, and people think I'm nuts, but I'm not. Another reason why you want to expand the playoff, if you're a Division I school like UTSA at 8-0, or Cincinnati, who for the second year in a row now, Cincinnati was undefeated last year. Now, granted, on this vote, Shannon, and I've been watching Cincinnati closely, especially because they went undefeated last year and they got screwed because there was only 4 teams in the playoffs. Secondly, Luke Fickell, their head coach, is being talked about as a possible replacement at USC, who fired Clay Helton. And Mike Bone, the athletic director at USC, used to be at Cincinnati, and he's the guy who hired Luke Fickell at Cincinnati, who is now their coach. And I feel like if Cincinnati gets screwed twice in a row, Luke Fickell might just decide to go to a Power 5 conference and try to just be done with this. But I truly, if you had 16 teams, and you can go do the math on this, and you just look at the top 25 right now, and you could accommodate everybody who's, if you're undefeated and you're UTSA or Central Florida or Cincinnati, you should be in the tournament. And granted, none of us expect you to win in the tournament, but you know what? Damn it, you're undefeated. You should be in the tournament. So there's my stance on that there. And you solve it with a 16-team tournament, and you even get to let in your Alabamas of the world. You get to let in 3, maybe 5 SEC teams, because I get it. That is big boy college football. But it's just part of why I vote abomination here, especially if Alabama loses to Georgia and still goes to a 4-team playoff. It's just not fair. It's why here we talk every week with UTSA head football coach Jeff Traylor lately about the top 25, how UTSA is ascending in the top 25, yet we should probably have an asterisk on that conversation and go, well, coach, you're in the top 25, but you're not allowed in the top 4. No matter what you do, you can win them all, but you're not allowed in the top. I mean, to me, that's just wrong. And we see in the College World Series, if you win, you're going to get a chance to play for a championship. In the NCAA tournament, if you win, you're going to get a chance to play for a championship. It's one of the big inequities of college football to me.
I mean, UTSA didn't even make the top 25 here. So what are we doing with the coaches poll? What are we doing with the AP poll if we're saying at the end of the day, it's the college football playoff ranking that matters, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you have a Cincinnati who's number 2 in the AP poll, undefeated, and now they're number 6 on the outside looking in the college football playoff. And then again, you mentioned potentially the coach leaving because he's like, what am I doing here? Right. I've gotten all the wins. Speaking of wins, let's go ahead and pause here because you could win $1,000 right now.
Yes.
720 on the Chris Duel show. Here it is. Your keyword for the 7:00 hour.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword BAG to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's BAG to 200-200.
Secure the bag by texting BAG to 200-200 for your shot at $1,000. Chris, Cincinnati obviously making the move, right, to a Big 12, to a Power 5 conference. And for this reason alone, I mean, if they had anybody at that school that was like, where are we here it is right now. And again, the idea of expansion too is teams and these kids, they go to these schools, but they don't make their schedules.
Yeah.
And they can't change. They can only do what they can do with the teams in front of them and with the team they are working with. And as teams change throughout the year, as far as their ranking, that then adjusts strength of schedule. And you just, when you're a team like UTSA, when you're a team like Cincinnati, it's like, what do you want me to do here? We've won all of our games. You're punishing. I mean, UTSA is not even in this top 25.
That's
not even in this top 25. They were ranked 16th in the AP poll, and yet they're somehow not even in the top 25.
That's horse crap.
And you've got 2 lost teams and teams with 2 losses that have horrible schedules, and the wins they do have are not what I would consider quality opponent wins.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I have in my top 25, just for grants, I have UTSA at 14. I know it doesn't matter, and I'm sorry.
It does matter. No,
I give you UTSA fans because I think you are worth the 14th spot, which maybe for some of you as being undefeated still isn't enough. But again, I still have to go with who you've played.
Which, oh, by the way,
But
in
I have you in the
the AP,
top
they're
25.
16. So you're actually close to you give them a little more love than the AP
Correct.
poll, which gives them at number 16.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing, Chris?
And by the way, Cincinnati is number 2 in the AP top 25. Let me see what they are in the coaches poll. They're number 2 in the coaches poll. Yep. So if I'm Cincinnati right now, I am just angry. It's like the 2 major polls until now have us, not had us, have us at number 2, and we're not getting in. We're number 6.
We don't even care about those anymore. No one cares about those the second the college football playoff poll comes up. But it's like, why are we caring about them at the middle of the season, and why are we then using those polls at the beginning of the season to judge teams, to give them certain TV slots, to give to balance out and view a strength of schedule, and then somehow use those numbers to then come up with our own numbers that look like they have nothing to do with the other numbers once we start using our own numbers in this poll. I just think we need to open up a criminal investigation into the college football playoff and who is voting and why, because there is something wrong here.
That's I want to know names. I want to know who's voting.
Name names. I want names.
And maybe
whoever made that anonymous tip about the monkey story, I'm sure you have some insight into Mr. Thomas G. Campbell.
And I wonder if the
Who's
monkey
on the board.
I wonder if the monkey is one of the voters because, and even if
Who's
I'm
paying for votes.
if I'm Oklahoma, and granted, I don't like Oklahoma. I got angst against Oklahoma. God bless you, Andy Everett. We love you. God bless you, Dylan Emery, the Blue Collar Sports Dad. We love you. But I'm sick of Oklahoma. That's it.
Yeah.
And granted, I'm a little bitter as a
Yeah.
Longhorns fan. So I know that's part of it. But if I'm an Oklahoma fan and even trying to be objective here, they're number 8. And they're Oklahoma. Yep. They're playing an Oklahoma schedule. Granted, some of those games have been close games.
Yes.
But they went 9-0. And if that can happen to Oklahoma, Shannon, imagine if Texas was 9-0 right now and played a few close games. Our heads would be exploding if Texas was 9-0 and ranked number 8 in this poll right now.
And I've got Oklahoma at number 6 because I do think, what happened in Kansas, what should have happened with Texas, and what almost happened with a few other teams they've played kind of do hurt them a little bit, especially as you see that the teams they have beaten have kind of fallen by the wayside, like a Texas. But yeah, I think they have a right to be upset. I mean, a lot of teams, unless you are Georgia or Alabama, you have a right to be upset. And if you are a true college football fan, even though your allegiances may lie with Alabama, I think you still have a right to be upset.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't be number 2.
No.
Go ahead and argue why you should be top 4, but you should be able to say in full honesty, we should not be number 2.
Agree. Now, I didn't make a top 25, but I made a top 4.
Okay,
so again,
give it to me.
The college football playoff rankings, the top 4 are Georgia 8-0, Alabama 7-1, 3 Michigan State 8-0, 4 Oregon 7-1. Number 1, like you, I have Georgia. They're head and shoulders above everybody else. Offensively, defensively, they're a juggernaut. I get it. Number 2, and I weigh heavier on undefeated. If you're a legit program with a legit schedule, and I'm not. And I love UTSA, and they are a legit program. Their schedule, and it's not their fault. They're in Conference USA, leaves a little bit to be desired. So right. I'm being realistic about that. But I'd rank them higher than 16, and I'd certainly have them in the top 25, which they're not in the college football rankings. All right, I got Georgia number 1. I got Michigan State at number 2 because they're 8-0 because they beat everybody. Number 3, I've got Cincinnati because they're 8-0 because they've beaten everybody. And you look at the other undefeated teams for my 4 slot, you got Oklahoma at 9-0. You got Wake Forest, Tim Duncan's old school at 8-0. And you've got UTSA at 8-0. Of those schools, I choose Oklahoma. So I weigh heavily. So in fact, everybody's undefeated in my top 4. Georgia, 8-0. Michigan State, 8-0. Cincinnati, 8-0. And Oklahoma, 8-0. If you're undefeated, and you're playing what I believe is a Power 5, and I know you could argue Cincinnati here, and Cincinnati had a hard time with Tulane and Navy recently, so you can certainly argue with me on this, but I think more weight needs to be given to undefeated teams, and that includes UTSA.
Yeah. My top 4, Georgia, Cincinnati, Oregon, Michigan State.
Right. We're pretty close there.
Yep.
We're pretty close there. All right. Tell you what, we'll, if you want to sound off on this, either tweet at us or jump in here on the phone lines, 800-707-9760, or jump on the live video feed on Facebook Live, on YouTube, or on Twitter. Coming up, Shannon's salty shakedown. How's she going to follow the monkey story from yesterday? We'll see. This day in sports history, sports birthdays, and more. Just after 8 o'clock, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening, on a game night as our San Antonio Spurs take on Shannon's Dallas Mavericks tonight at the AT&T Center. Lots to talk about all morning long. We've done a lot of World Series talk. I'm sure we'll get back to it. Oh, and we'll talk Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen has issues. We'll talk about that as well. You're listening to the Chris Duel Show. Yeah, Travis, I think you got to go at least 8 teams. At least. John, that's a ridiculous argument. UTSA is a small market city. That's why. John, what is Tuscaloosa, Alabama? Is that a big market? Most college towns, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Where is Michigan State? I know this. I just can't access it in my head right now. So most colleges are in a small Lincoln, Nebraska for Nebraska all those years. Norman, Oklahoma. So you can't say small market city, John. That is not accurate. Good morning, Robert. Chris Gonzalez says Oklahoma is in the right place. Their defense is not good, and their offense is so spotted in the game. Well, they're undefeated. So, Chris, if Oklahoma goes undefeated this year and wins the Big 12 championship, and Alabama has 2 losses and loses the SEC championship to Georgia, do we put Alabama in the top 4 instead of Oklahoma? I don't think you should. You beat everybody in front of you. Yeah, and if you, I say we reward victories. When you get into style points, and and Alabama schedules, an East Carolina, and then because of style points, Alabama has to run up the score 72-0. That's awful. That's god awful, if you ask me. I'll be right back. Give you some Bryn Forbes, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Bryn. Thanks for being here. Bryn Forbes. Thank you, Bren. Thanks for being with us. Wow, John, I forgot that Jeremy Fouts picked the Atlanta Braves to beat the Houston Astros in the World Series. And that was still when we were at the championship series level, I believe, when it was still Astros, Red Sox, and Dodgers, Braves. Lucinda Sullivan with the coffee emoji. I second that emoji. I just got some coffee. Here we come. Oh, that's right. Thank you, Jason. Scott Manziera before the series.
We're back. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Join in by dialing 1-800-707-9760.
Welcome back. It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs on a Spurs game night, as tonight the Spurs host the Dallas Mavericks at the AT&T Center. Bill's going to join us just after 8 o'clock in a moment. Shannon's Salty Shakedown, sports history, and sports birthdays. But Shannon, I got a couple of reminders, as did you, just now on Facebook Live. First of all, John Williams reminded us that Jeremy Fouts, former soundscape stylist who has since left us and moved on to greener pastures, he predicted before he left, and I believe it was during or like at the beginning of the league championship series when it was Dodgers versus Braves and Astros versus Red Sox, Jeremy Fouts predicted it would be the Braves versus the Astros in the World Series, and he subsequently predicted the Braves would beat the Astros in the World Series. So we must give some props to our former soundscape stylist, the boy wonder, Jeremy Fouts.
Yeah, when Jeremy makes a pick, you put money on it.
I'm telling you, you should. And then, and I forgot, and we must give him props, Scott Manziera, before this series began, he predicted Braves in 6. You and I and Dave Ayler had Astros in 6. Taylor Estes had Astros in 6. Mike Harge originally had Astros in 5. But yeah, he had Braves in 6. All right. So we hand out kudos when kudos are due. And as we said at the beginning of the show, if you're a legitimate Braves fan, or if you were pulling for the Atlanta Braves for legitimate reasons, congratulations. We're happy for you. However, if you were pulling for the Braves because you hate the Astros, then I withhold congratulations from you. May you have a crappy day. All right. So there's that. I feel better, Shannon.
I'm glad.
I feel better. Okay. Thanks. We're going to feel a lot better coming up right now because we are moments away from Shannon's Salty Shakedown. Will it be monkey-free this morning or will it not? We'll find out. There may be monkeys involved, or will there be pole assassins of any kind involved? We're about to find out. Before that, how about some sports birthdays and this day in sports history? On this day in 1962, Wilt Chamberlain of the San Francisco Warriors scores 72 points against the LA Lakers. It was then the 4th highest point total in NBA history. He hit 29 field goals and 14 free throws. To this day, that is the 6th highest points scored in the NBA. On this day in 1987, Oakland A's first baseman Mark McGwire won the American League Rookie of the Year. He had 49 home runs, 118 RBI. He was the second to win the AL award unanimously. He was the unanimous winner of Rookie of the Year. Carlton Fisk, the only other one to do that. He did that in 1972. On this day in 1989, Lou Piniella was named the manager of the Cincinnati Reds. He replaced manager Pete Rose, who was banned for life for gambling on Major League Baseball games. That ban has stood up to this day for Pete Rose. And finally, on this day in 1996, Los Angeles Lakers superstar Kobe Bryant becomes the then youngest player to make his NBA debut. It was this day when he made his NBA debut in 1996. Kobe was 18 years, 2 months, and 11 days old. And the Lakers won that night over the Minnesota Timberwolves 91-85 in the Great Western Forum. The Spurs now have an 18-year-old named Josh Primo. Would be nice if he had half the success that Kobe Bryant did. There's your sports history. How about some sports birthdays? Born on this day in 1908, maybe one of the greatest names for a football player ever, Bronco Nagurski. He was born in Canada. I didn't know that. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, was a fullback with the Chicago Bears. He was born in Rainy River, Ontario in 1908. He died in 1990. Born on this day in 1949, boxer. He would ultimately beat Muhammad Ali and become the world heavyweight champion. He had 20 successful title defenses. Boxer Larry Holmes, born on this day in 1949 in Cuthbert, Georgia. Born on this day in 1955, Super Bowl winning quarterback, now television broadcaster, New York Giants quarterback Phil Simms was born in Springfield, Kentucky on this day in 1955. And finally, born on this day in 1987, born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We were just talking about him yesterday. Former NFL quarterback, took his team to the Super Bowl, Colin Kaepernick. Today is Colin Kaepernick's birthday. Those are your sports birthdays. That's your sports history. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, countrymen, and monkeys, here it is, your salty shakedown.
No specific monkeys today in the Salty Shakedown, but perhaps some monkey business, Chris. As we found out, unfortunately, last night, the World Series has come to an end and the Astros on the upset side of it all. But prior to yesterday's ending of the World Series, there were some thieves in the Houston area who were looking to make, I guess, a quick buck. They decided that they were going to steal Astros merchandise, or at least what they thought would be Astros merchandise. There's a company called Sunline Products T-shirts. They are responsible for printing shirts, apparently for the Astros. I'm not sure if these are the specific like Academy ones, but they I guess did the ALCS shirts that, said victorious, and they had all of these shirts waiting to be printed for the World Series should the Astros have won. So again, the shirts have not been printed yet. They have to wait for the go-ahead to say, okay, print the shirts. So they have boxes and boxes within their facilities just labeled Astros merch. So some thieves show up. They spray paint the cameras, except for one that was a hidden camera. And thank goodness for that, because that hidden camera ended up catching the vehicle so they could find the people who did this.
Good.
But they come in and they steal $30,000 worth of T-shirts.
Wow.
Each box had 100 shirts worth $720. So you can do the math to find out just how many boxes they stole. Someone at Sunline Products said they stole all the boxes with the labeled Astros on them, and then they also just kind of started stealing other stuff. But as we mentioned before, nothing was printed yet, Chris. So they ended up stealing $30,000 worth of blank t-shirts. I'm sure the
Wow.
idea was to get World Series, whatever shirts, and to then sell them on their own and make some money. Because, right, we've all seen the scalpers outside of stadiums with their own versions of shirts for whatever sports team, whether it's just a regular Saturday afternoon or a championship series win. Chris, what idiots. They didn't want to at least open one of the boxes to be like, oh, it's just a bunch of blank shirts.
Well, they are idiots and criminals. However, if they were listeners to this show, they would realize maybe they could sell a few of those shirts to Dave Ayler. Soundscape stylist Dave Ayler loves the blank t-shirt. He loves the nondescript, no logo, no team. I'm about me. I'm not about some label or some team. So Dave Ayler would have bought 3 or 4 of those shirts.
I would give him about $10 for or something.
They could have made a little bit of that money back from Dave.
I mean, maybe they can go and steal like a shirt press or something. I don't know if we can get like a little one from Walmart or like a giant one from the likes of One Sunline Products. But then they can make their own shirt and sell them, I guess. I mean, it's not like they spent any money to begin with, but they're probably going to spend a little money when it comes to their cases being brought up in court. Because, again, that secret security camera that they did not see, that they did not spray paint to hide their identities, did catch their vehicle, as well as the people involved. Moving on to another crime in the sports world, because we're just all about crime.
Crime is everywhere.
A man in Minnesota, 30 years old, has been charged for illegally streaming games for profit. He streamed games from the MLB, the NBA, the NFL, and NHL beginning in 2017 and lasting up through August of 2021. He reportedly charged $100 for a year's worth of all the MLB games. He's a bit of a hacker. He found ways to get codes and logins that were legitimate and use those to stream games on his own dark web website. On top of that, for the MLB, the way he was accessing those games, he tried to use that information that he found to access those games to extort the MLB for $150,000 to say, I will share this information if you don't pay me. And an undisclosed league, but one of the major leagues that was being stolen from, estimated that this man took $3 million worth of profit from them. So not sure which league, take your guesses, but that he stole that amount of money from them. Chris, I don't feel bad for this man because, 1, you're an idiot. 2, sounds like he lives in his mom's basement. But 3, also, our technology, I feel like we should be past this, especially with all of these leagues. I mean, I get why you do have some people looking for alternate. They don't want to pay for Red Zone. They don't want to pay for the 18 different MLB channels or what other packages they have for all the other programs. But come on, just go to a sports bar.
Yeah.
They're going to have it. That's why they're called a sports bar.
Well, and when you try to extort the league,
that's
lesson number 1, don't take money from billionaires. They get angry and they've got attorneys and they win.
Yeah, because $3 million to one league may not seem like a lot, but it's still their money and people don't like to have their money messed with. So way to go, dude. I guess there's not much else to do in Minnesota and you just decided to run with that. But moving on from crime and maybe over into what might be the newest curse in the NFL, we discussed a little bit that maybe the Madden curse is catching up to one Patrick Mahomes. But thanks to the Mannings, we now have a new curse. It's the Manning cast curse, Chris. Because they have now been on throughout the season. They did have a bye week, so the curse did take some time off during those weeks that the Mannings were not on the air. But let's just recap. In week 1, you had Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce and Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson. Well, the Chiefs not looking so great at all this season. And Russell Wilson, his Seahawks team, for one, not looking all that great. And Russell Wilson not even playing right now. Injured.
Yikes.
Week 2, the Mannings had on Rob Gronkowski. Where has Rob Gronkowski been?
Injured.
And that team, the Bucs, went on to lose their first game of the season that week. Also going on to lose their first game of the season after his appearance on the show. One, Matt Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams. That is the week before they went on to lose to the Arizona Cardinals.
Wow.
And then you have Tom Brady, who of course appeared last week prior to his game against the Saints. We know how that one went down. Saints ended up winning with Trevor Siemian taking the field. Not something anyone else saw coming. So here we are. This week, we had Josh Allen on. We talked yesterday. There was a fun story about him saying, I will break a table from the parade route should the Bills win the Super Bowl. There was also a fun little story about how Peyton Manning's son, who plays flag football, is such a big Josh Allen fan. Their team happens to be the Bills. And instead of having Manning on the back of his jersey, he has Jay Allen on the back of his jersey. Peyton Manning says that is disrespectful. But what might be more disrespectful is for Peyton Manning to allow Josh Allen, who is playing so well, gets better and better every year, has a fantastic team, a team that looks to make a deep run, brings him on to Monday Night Football and may curse him. However, Chris, the Bills play the Jaguars this weekend.
No way they're going to lose that. If the Jaguars win that one, yes. Or there could be a Josh Allen injury. If then we'll know the curse. Oh,
don't even put that.
I'm telling you, it's the Manning cast curse.
And then following that game, the next week the Bills play the Jets. So if the curse is real, this is where it would shine. And if the curse is real, I think the Manning cast is going to start to get a lot less interesting because it has been fun seeing players during, on a Monday night, either they just played or they're on an off week to get their to have them be loose, right? Because we see them a lot with media throughout the season, but not in this kind of format. But players might start declining the offer should this trend here continue. The Manning cast curse. Be on the lookout for the Bills this weekend as they take on the Jaguars. Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence. What happens if they get a win over the big bad Buffalo Bills? There it is, today's Salty Shakedown.
Outstanding Salty Shakedown as always, and we will keep an eye on that Manning cast curse. And I'll have a few more things to say about that coming up. But we got a phone call at 800-707-9760. Warren has some issues he would like to cover on the phone lines. Hey, Warren, thanks for calling, man. What's on your mind?
Oh, man, I just wanted to touch on the college football rankings real quick. And then also wanted to talk about the World Series.
Sure.
The first off with the college football rankings, everyone's hating on Bama at 2. A&M gets blown out by Bama 5 years in a row, and every now and then they have a miracle win, and all of a sudden Bama's terrible. I have to disagree, man. I think Bama's a lot better than people think. You got a brand new quarterback, brand new system. They lost 20 players to the draft. And at the end of the day, UTSA not being in the rankings is an atrocity.
Thank you.
I cannot believe that an 8-0 team is not in the rankings over 2 and 3 lost teams. It's insane. But that's all I wanted to say about the rankings. I really wanted to talk about our Astros duel. And
sure.
I'm bummed, man. It really came down to 2 things, man. Starting pitching and hitting with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, and there was that game in Atlanta, Warren, where the Astros left 9, 10 guys on base and lost a close one. That one came back to bite them. Yeah, it was. I think we both believe they could have won this series.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Imagine if Kohlers and Verlander.
Oh.
And 2, I think Dusty should have moved Bregman down the lineup early. He obviously was on a super slump, so that was just Bregman should have been in the 7 or 8 spot after game 1, and putting him down in game 5 is too late. And then the fact that we lose our ace, McCullers, kind of last minute, I think kind of really hurt the momentum that they had going, man. So bullpen played great. I know they played us hard, but hitting with runners in scoring position and just bad starting pitching killed us.
Warren, great takes. And thanks for the phone call. And, Shannon, Warren, I think a lot of people are probably going to agree with him on the Alabama thing. You and I, and part of it for me, I think, is Alabama fatigue. I will admit that, but,
I like the take. I like the take. It's a good argument.
Yeah, he had a good argument for Bama, and he was right about. And for people just tuning in, UTSA, we're not saying put them in the playoff. They're not even in the top 25 of the college football ranking. They're 8-0. Fresno State with 2 losses is in the top 25, and UTSA is not. So great call, Warren. We're glad you called in, man. Coming up, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. Shannon, I know you're a Mavericks fan, so you got to show him a little respect here. Come, don't be mean. He's just a messenger. We'll see how he feels about the San Antonio Spurs prospects tonight against the Dallas Mavericks. His thoughts on the NBA in general. And as always, he was the longtime voice of the Texas Longhorns. He follows the Texas Longhorns athletic programs closely. So we'll talk some Longhorn football, maybe even Longhorn hoops with him. Anything's possible. Sports Illustrated picks the Longhorns to go to the Final Four in basketball. Maybe we will bring that up. She's Shannon, Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler making the show go till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Woo! Now, Warren, you were great. I just wrote that. That was a tremendous phone call, Warren. Call us back anytime. We enjoyed that. We were kind of up against the clock, so we had to abbreviate it a little bit. John, we believe Shannon will be going to the next Mavericks game. We are working on tickets. That is going to be November 18th in 15 days. That's the plan. All right. I need ice, I do believe. How am I doing on coffee? I think I've killed all the coffee. That's frightening. Me all caffeinated up. Yeah. Coffee is gone. 0. I drank all of this coffee. And then I drink coffee when I wake up. So, I mean, this is what I bring to work. I drink 2 mega cups of coffee before I even begin my day. David Valles, welcome in. Axel J. Miller. Oh, man, Axel, the Raiders, Gruden and now Henry Ruggs. My God. John, Shannon is going to have pretty good seats, we think. We have quite the person on the case. So they might be courtside for all we know. All right, let's see. Out of coffee. I want to get some ice for my iced tea. Bill Schoening about to join us. Yeah, Axel, it's amazing how quickly, in his career now, it's amazing how quickly things can go so very badly. It's a little Bill Schoening photo for you. We'll have another one coming up. All right. And Bryn Forbes. Back in a sec. Thank you, Bryn Forbes. Axel J. Miller saying, even good people can do reckless things. Yeah, and I understand that, and I agree with that. And certainly, I mean, all of us, especially you look back to things you've done in your 20s or early 20s, and to be an NFL football player. I did hear this about Henry Ruggs, though. He had a teammate when he played basketball in high school, and I think he was number 3. Anyway, he was killed on the way to a playoff tournament. So when he would score touchdowns with Alabama and the Raiders, Henry Ruggs would look up to the sky and hold up a number 3 for a friend of his who was killed in a car accident, which is just a layer of irony there, sadly. Okay, let me see here. I need to do some editing between now and 9. See if I can find what I'm looking for. Bill Schoening about to join us. Let's see, I need that one. That's what I need. Dave Ayler is calling Bill Schoening. Thank you, sir. Yeah, Robert says the Cowboys had 2 former players that killed innocent people. One player was a safety, and the last one was a defensive player. Yeah, one of those players, and I'm forgetting the names, Robert, but he played for the San Antonio Talons, and this is the guy who got killed. played for the San Antonio Talons in the Arena League, made the Cowboys, and was with a Cowboys teammate who was driving impaired and got in the wreck and killed his teammate. Gosh, this was like 5-7 years ago. Horrible story. Dwayne Goodrich, defensive back. Thank you, Marcus Valdespino. Good to see you, Marcus. Marcus worked at this radio station many years.
Now, Chris Duel.
The bad news, the Houston Astros lost last night 7-0, therefore losing the World Series to the Atlanta Braves. The good news, we've still got football. We've still got basketball. We got the San Antonio Spurs in action tonight against the Dallas Mavericks. We got the Texas Longhorns. They're headed to Iowa State. We got the Dallas Cowboys with an opportunity for the best record in the NFC or the NFL by the time it's all said and done. Cowboys this weekend will take on the Denver Broncos. Welcome in. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Your chance to win $1,000 coming up in about 13 minutes at 8:20. Every Wednesday, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening, is kind enough to join us, especially on a game night. We appreciate it, as tonight the Spurs take on the Dallas Mavericks. Formerly, he was the longtime voice of the Texas Longhorns as well. Now, year number 21 as the radio voice of the San Antonio Spurs. Bill Schoening, how are you doing this morning?
I'm very good, Chris. Thanks for having me. Wednesday, I feel like it would be an out-of-body experience if it was Wednesday morning at 8:06 and I wasn't on with you and Salty.
Well, and we love it, and we appreciate that you take the time. Now, it was an off night for you last night. Were you doing what a lot of America did last night? Were you watching the World Series?
Yes, I was, for sure. I was pulling for the Astros, of course. But give credit to Atlanta. They certainly deserve the series. I also got some bad news last night, Chris. I don't know if you knew Bill Harwell, but he was a longtime producer for the Texas Longhorn Radio Network, and he passed away yesterday. And I got to work with Bill for 12 years. And, I don't want to go on and on about him, but he was just a great guy. But he was one of these people that was so easy to work with. He was very organized. And for Longhorn football, it's a big operation. I think there's 70 or 80 stations on the network, so you got to coordinate a lot of stuff as far as timing is concerned, commercial breaks, when you go to the sideline reporter, when you go to the studio anchor, making sure you get all the drop-ins in, making sure everything's working and running the booth. And that's what Bill Harwell did for years and years. I think in 2020 during COVID, he produced from home, and then unfortunately he got ill and was able to do some segments for the Longhorn Network this year, but not as many. And he sadly passed away yesterday. And it's just, it's one of those reminders too, Chris, in life that, sometimes you don't stay in touch with people you really should stay in touch with a little bit,
Yeah.
I was just saddened that I never got a chance to, call him and say, hey, thanks for the years we worked together. I still have a T-shirt he gave me one time because he didn't like my wine choice. This was right around the time I joined the Spurs. He got me a T-shirt that said, "Friends don't let friends drink White Zinfandel." And for whatever reason, to this day, I still have that T-shirt, and I haven't sipped any White Zinfandel since then. It's too sweet. But he was a wonderful guy, very organized, and just one of those people that works behind the scenes. A producer, didn't want to be out front on air, but he made our jobs so much easier. And he worked with a lot of great guys in the industry, like Brad Sham and Craig Way, and we all feel the same way about him.
Well, Bill, I'm glad you brought that up, and I did not know about Bill Harwell's passing. And me and like Shannon, we're radio people, so when we listen to a radio broadcast, we pay close attention to the names that are cited. And I had heard, I never met him, but I had heard Bill Harwell's name many times on Longhorn broadcasts. And as you know, Bill, we broadcast to and from Austin as well with Shannon. And so certainly our thoughts, our prayers, our condolences go out to the family of Bill Harwell. So, Bill, I appreciate your bringing that up. Shannon, go ahead. I know you want to jump in here with Bill.
Yeah, Bill. Well, Chris asked you if you watched the World Series, and obviously you were rooting for the Astros, and things didn't go their way. But has me curious. Do you feel sports wins and losses as deeply as a broadcaster as Chris and I do for your teams that you would normally cheer for when you're not working?
Oh, sure, absolutely. If you have a passion for sports, you should have a passion for the teams that you're following and covering. And that's what's made it so great to be part of this Spurs thing for the last 21 years. All the great victories and all. They're struggling a little bit right now. They got a young team, but sure, you certainly you win and lose with them, and you roll with them, and you want them to do well. I never really had a real affiliation with the Astros. Reed Ryan is a pretty good friend of mine, Nolan's son, who of course was president of the Astros for a while. And I've got a lot of dear friends who are huge Astros fans, and obviously they're in the great state of Texas, so I was pulling for them. Just like I would pull for the Texas Rangers if they ever get their stuff together and get back to the postseason. My good friend Eric Nadel was the longtime radio voice of the Rangers, and even during the late 90s had me come in and pinch hit for about 3 years just on certain games. So I got to do about 17 or 18 Rangers games in the late 90s, and I love that, by the way. So I'll always pull for the Texas teams if they're in a situation like last night. But caps off to the Atlanta Braves. They certainly deserved it.
Well, and yeah, Bill, and even though I am an Astros fan and I was very invested and I really wanted the Astros to win this World Series, especially because of the cheating scandal, because I think we could have said certainly with a lot of confidence there was no cheating going on this year because the Astros have been so scrutinized. That being said, the Atlanta Braves, nothing to dislike about them. They all seem like amazing players. Their manager, Brian Snitker, seems like a great guy. So, and I love a story, Bill, and this could apply to the NBA. This could apply to the NFL. The Atlanta Braves demonstrated, and for all of our teams every year, if they're not the best team in the league and the playoffs are approaching, we hope that our team will get hot at the right time. And this Braves team, sub 500 at the All-Star break, I believe even sub 500 in August. And a lot of these guys who were heroes, were mid-season acquisitions. So it just goes to show you in the world of sports, you hang in there, you get hot at the right time, and some great things can happen.
We've seen it happen in the NBA and in Major League Baseball. You're right. In the NFL, teams just kind of catch fire. They get some momentum. They get a good win. And I know last week we talked about the Spurs series with the Dallas Mavericks in 14. I really do believe that opening round test that the Mavericks gave the Spurs provided the impetus for them to get some momentum and get going, because they had to play really well to beat Dallas in that series. And sometimes, if you get challenged right away, that gives you a little momentum going down the line.
Well, of course, Spurs and Mavericks will meet each other once again tonight. They met last week. Mavs get off to a slow start, but they ultimately get the first win of the series for this season. Now this one at the Spurs tonight. How do you see this one shaking out?
Well, the Dallas is dealing with some injuries right now. Porzingis and Kleba, two of their top front court players, are out. I'm not sure what Porzingis' status is for tonight, but Kleba's going to be out for a little bit. And Kleba played great in that game last week. It was a week ago tonight in Dallas. I think he blocked 5 or 6 shots and grabbed a bunch of rebounds, and it really had an impact on the game when he came in off the bench in that game. But for the Spurs, it's not about worrying about who's out there for the Mavs. It's about, getting back to the basics, because I think that one of the things that Pop was disappointed in the other night was he didn't feel like the team competed as hard as they did in those previous 4 losses. And of course, they came back with a win against Milwaukee. So I think from the outset of the game tonight, it's going to be about effort and really working hard and competing.
Well, and Bill, you mentioned the Spurs win at Milwaukee last Saturday night, which I just loved and thought was such a quality win against the defending NBA champions, the Milwaukee Bucks, on their floor at Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee. And I'm hoping tonight for a similar dynamic, because the Spurs had played Milwaukee a week earlier, and it was a tight game down the stretch. Milwaukee ultimately won it. And here we are playing the Dallas Mavericks about a week later after having played them earlier in the season. Shannon mentioned the Mavs got off to a slow start. I mean, the Spurs opened a huge lead, as I recall, in the first quarter against the Mavericks. But again, I go back, Bill, so many times to coaching and Coach Greg Popovich and this Spurs coaching staff, having had already a close encounter with the Dallas Mavericks, I have a feeling they're going to use a lot of what they learned against Dallas and make some adjustments tonight.
Yeah, they want to get back to that kind of defense that they were playing where they get out on shooters, they disrupt the passing lanes. The other night against Indy, they ended up scoring 78 points in the first half. The most points given up in the first half by the Spurs since 1990. We talked about this in the broadcast a little bit, Chris. So they want to come out and play much more aggressive defense, not be so sloppy on offense. They had 17 turnovers, which led to 29 points the other night against the Pacers. So they've got to be stronger with the basketball, obviously a little bit more purposeful in defense. And I think they'll be okay. I really do. I think that, this is a team that's young, so it's not always going to be a consistent ball club. But one thing Pop wants is consistency and the effort and the determination and the competitiveness. And I think we'll see that tonight.
Bill, wanted to ask you about the new City Edition jerseys. They were just revealed, not quite on sale yet. I don't think they become on sale for another couple of weeks, but they're a redesign. Of course, they're always supposed to reflect the city of which the team plays in and give some history. These versions are called the mixtape versions. Have you seen the Spurs' newest one, and how do you compare it to the ones of the past?
And there's a really cool video out there on Spurs social media about the players first seeing the jerseys when they go into the locker room. And their reaction is great. I mean, they really enjoy it. It's different completely. It's very colorful. I think it captures the Fiesta spirit, if you will. And I think that those guys will be proud to be rocking those jerseys.
Well, and Bill, I talked to you about this on the broadcast, and you know me, I go back to the ABA and the Spurs' first arrival in San Antonio. And I think a lot of people forget, before they were the Spurs in 1973, they were the Dallas Chaparrals. And even for a year, they were the Texas Chaparrals. And what I love about this new Fiesta City Edition uniform and jersey is on one side of the shorts, they have the actual, and I'm a freak and I remember the logo, they've got the actual Dallas Chaparrals logo, which is the bird, the chaparral, and in one of its claws is a red, white, and blue ABA basketball. And whenever there's an homage to the ABA by NBA teams, and in particular by the Spurs, I think it's very, very cool. So, and you brought this up as well on pregame the other night. As soon as that drops, Bill, I am either driving to the Spurs fan shop or whatever I got to do. I love the new jerseys. I love the look. I got to grab me one and start wearing it around town.
Absolutely. And I got to thinking about this too. The chaparral, which is a really cool look there on the side of the shorts. The chaparral is basically a roadrunner, correct? I mean,
yes.
What we call them. All right. So should the Coyote not be chasing the roadrunner?
Wow.
Shorts.
I like that a lot. Yes.
Yeah.
That is, look at you two, just talking about old cartoons in the name of the NBA.
15 in the morning, whatever it is. So if we want to talk about old cartoons, we can. Snapchat for the Friendly Ghost. That'll be on next week's episode.
Oh, okay, looking forward to it. Good little teaser there. Wanted to ask you today about Scottie Pippen as well, because he's apparently got a book coming out. It seems like as much hate as he's thrown onto The Last Dance, riding off of that, he's now released, I think, a tequila or some sort of liquor. He's got this book coming out, and in it, there's been an excerpt already released about him and Michael Jordan and the teammates and how they felt about The Last Dance, and that Scottie and him never really got along. And I don't know, I was so young then, and obviously social media not being a huge thing, I don't know that if it was as well known that maybe, the big three for those Chicago Bulls were not a tight-knit group. Please tell me that the big three for the Spurs, we're not going to get something 10, 20 years down the line where it's like, we actually hate each other.
I can't see that happening. I think there's way too much love there. There's way too much chemistry and unity between the Spurs big three. Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker will always be intertwined. Obviously, Tim, Hall of Fame, first ballot player, but the other two will be too, or at least they should be, for not only what they did in the NBA, but also internationally. And I believe it was 575 wins together for those three, which is an all-time record for a trio. And I can't imagine any trio staying together for 14 years the way those guys played together for 14 years and coming anywhere close to the success that the Spurs big three had. Of course, you can look back in time with the Lakers had a big three, the Celtics had a big three, but the Spurs surpassed those guys in terms of total wins and in terms of championships.
More coming up with the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. But right now at 20 after the hour, we do this all day long up until 9:20 on the 20s. Your chance to win $1,000. Here it is.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword Bill to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's Bills to 200-200.
How perfect. Bills is the keyword, and Bill Schoening is joining us on the phone line. Bill, we also talk college football with you. As I mentioned, you were the longtime voice of the Texas Longhorns. Yesterday, pretty much evening, about the time the World Series began, the college football playoff rankings came out. Your top 4 teams, according to the rankings: number 1, Georgia; number 2, Alabama. They've got a loss. Number 3, Michigan State. Number 4, Oregon. They have a loss. Undefeated teams: Cincinnati is at 6. Oklahoma is at 8. Wake Forest is at 9. And undefeated UTSA nowhere in the top 25. Having covered college football up close and personal for so many years, especially as the voice of the Texas Longhorns, Bill, how do you feel about the college football playoff ranking system? Is it flawed? And if so, how would you change it?
I would really like to see a really true playoff in college football. Now, they talk about having a playoff now, which is better than it used to be, for sure. But sometimes the Cincinnatis and UTSAs of the world get lost in the shuffle because of the Power 5 conferences or whatever. And in basketball, in the NCAA tournament, isn't part of the charm of the NCAA basketball tournament to see teams like Virginia Commonwealth make the Final Four or Coastal Carolina make a run? I think that's one of the true great things about the NCAA basketball tournament. So I would be in favor of a more wide open playoff, which would reward teams like a Cincinnati or a UTSA, a team that's had a great regular season. Hey, let them get in there with the big boys and see what happens.
I mean, I think we can all agree one of the most atrocious and left off this list things that took place last night on Tuesday with the release of the first college football playoff ranking is that Texas is nowhere to be found at 4-4. Not even making the top 25, rude. But also because I'm sure they'll stay above or at that 500 mark as they take on the last couple games of the season. We lose to Baylor on Saturday. It's another one where they just can't hang on. They get a lead. They lose that 11-point lead. It's not looking good for Texas right now. And then on top of that, there's a little bit of a monkey story floating around. Not sure if you've heard of that, Bill, but your thoughts on this team and where they might finish the season now that they are at that 4-4.
I was on Twitter the other day and I said, I see this story about strippers and monkeys. But I just can't even begin to get my mind wrapped around that. One of the problems, we talked about this last week, guys, against the Baylor Bears was stopping the run. And when Baylor was able to run and the Longhorns missed some tackles, and they've got some good backs, Baylor, but you got to make stops down the stretch, and they were unable to do that. And now I heard the post-game interview with Coach Sark, and he talked about fourth quarter blues. And I thought, if I was still the voice of the Longhorns, I might write a song called Fourth Quarter. I don't know how popular the song would be, but that's what they've got right now. You know, they look good for a while, and then they just can't get the job done. Once they do, I think they've got a lot of talent. I do think that they need to increase their talent level. I think that you got to give this guy an opportunity to get some players in there. There are some good players in this golf club. But the offensive line has not been very good, and they've had to kind of piece together some different combinations there in the offensive line. Chris, we talked about this before, but my philosophy, when I look at a football team to start the season, how good is your offensive line? If you've got a good, solid offensive line and some skilled people to run behind that or a quarterback to throw behind that, that's a great place to build around. You know, if you can run the ball, especially in the fourth quarter, try to protect the lead, or if you got a running back as good as Roshan Johnson or Bijan Robinson, you know, you've got really good players there, but you've got to have the protection and the blocking lanes up front. Those guys have not been very consistent, quite frankly, for the Longhorns. So I would think that would be one of the number one things in recruiting that Coach Sark will try to address, is to solidify that offensive line.
Finally, Bill, I mean, given your years as the voice of the Texas Longhorns, you know how high expectations are among Longhorn fans for all sports, and specifically, certainly for football. Obviously, it's Coach Steve Sarkisian's first year. You know, if we're going to be realistic, it's hard to come in year one with somebody else's recruits mainly and work miracles. What should be the expectation the rest of this season and for this first season for Longhorn football fans, and what should be their expectation, do you think, recruiting wise and headed into next year, year number 2 under Coach Sark?
Well, I think with the budget and with the facilities and with Austin being where it is in the state of Texas, where they've got great high school football, the expectation should always be high. I would never tell Longhorn fans to dumb down their expectations. But sometimes the expectations are a little bit unrealistic when it comes to, especially a first-year coach just trying to get through this first year. Obviously, there's a lot of turmoil with the Big 12 going on. Not to make excuses at all, but this is a program that should be, each year a team that is a top 25 team. And then once this coach gets his players in, gets everything established, it should be a top 10 program. I don't think that there's any reason for them not to be. Look at some of the other teams in the state of Texas that are having success right now. We mentioned UTSA, U of H, Baylor. These programs are playing very, very well. And I think that Texas should be at the top of that. I mean, it's part of the deal. You're at the University of Texas. You should expect the best, and they do. But sometimes, like the first year, like I'm talking about Sarkisian this year, I'm not saying give him a complete pass to some things that have happened that are not good. These fourth quarter collapses, for instance. But at the same time, it's going to take a deep breath and give this guy an opportunity, because I think that when you look at programs that haven't been successful, they tend to go through coaches a lot, go through different ADs a lot. I think you need some, solid ground to build on and give this guy an opportunity to build his program.
Always great getting Bill Schoening's perspective, and you will hear his call tonight as the Spurs host the Dallas Mavericks at the AT&T Center. That's a tip-off just after 7:30, but pregame on the Spurs flagship station, Spurs Radio 1200 WOAI, with Bill beginning at 7 o'clock tonight. So tune in for that on 1200 WOAI and across the Spurs Radio network. Bill Schoening, especially on a game day, we always appreciate it. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the radio tonight.
Thanks, Chris. See you guys.
All right, Bill Schoening, voice of the San Antonio Spurs. As we roll forward, we will take a look at all the stories in the world of sports. We got to talk about the guy the Packers cut yesterday. The the Cowboys, Spurs, talking to Bill. The Cowboys have a little bit of a history with him. We'll dive back into some of the Scottie Pippen story. Who will be the quarterback moving forward for the New Orleans Saints? Lots of ground to cover in the next half hour. NFL, college football, NBA, and more. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave Ayler making the show go with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Woo!
In this time of climate change, weather-related things, it's always nice to have a little solar power. Thank you.
Thank you. Why is it Roger Solar in San Antonio? Because when he first, I didn't,
I know.
and yet it's Soler. So why is it Roger Solar, Roger Soler? Yeah.
This guy might have just been anglicizing his name. I don't know.
Yeah.
Know the guy, but I've heard the name.
True. Yeah. He's a big guy
I think
in.
they should go out beyond the left field wall and see if that train is on the ground.
It was not pretty. It was. I went to bed early last night. I didn't stay up for it. So fair. Well, I'm glad you were. I'm glad somebody was happy. Well, and I've said this just now to Bill Schoening. You can't dislike the Atlanta Braves. They're a great guys, great manager, great story. Yeah. So I've got one more to edit. I am sending you these right now. I cut them yesterday and then it got away from me, but I'm sending it right now. She's doing well. Thank you.
I had to do the reading last night at the All Souls Day Mass, the Day of the Dead Mass.
Wow.
One of the hymns, ironically, was one that I had played at my mother's funeral 11 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
Whenever that was played, just,
What's the name of it?
On
First time I heard that, my brother's funeral in 1980. I had never heard that song before, and the first time I heard it was at his funeral. And every time I hear it now, it just gets me. It like takes me back to 1980. It is a beautiful, and that song was written like in 79.
I don't know.
I've looked it up. It's relatively. I mean, you have hymns that are 100 years old. It's a relatively new song compared to other hymns that are sang in churches and at funerals. Yeah. Wow. My goodness. I will do that. Michael Crawford, if you ever go on Apple, has a really good rendition of that song on Apple Music. Yeah. Yeah. Right. All right. You'll have these in a sec. Thanks. That was David Munoz popping in, and I owe him some R&R auto glass spots, which I'm sending him right now. So let's see here. This would be the 12th.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Just let you know that Monkey show yesterday, that was our most downloaded show in the last 4 weeks.
That's amazing.
By like almost double.
Have you told Shannon that? I gotta tell Shannon that. Okay, thank you for letting me know. Yeah, I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was hilarious. Oh, that's great. Yeah, thank you for thinking to do that.
I called it something like a monkey, a stripper, and a longhorn in Austin. More monkeys, more strippers on the show.
Very good. And apparently Sark has his press conference tomorrow, so we'll have to tune in to see how he handles those questions. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, Travis, I didn't get to your question. I apologize. Frank Ramirez, good morning. I would suggest to your question, Travis, yes, they will invest big money in franchise players. They're just looking for the right one. You know, it wasn't long ago that they signed LaMarcus Aldridge. I know a few years ago, but I think clearly this ownership group, the next generation of the Holtz, clearly R.C. Buford, Brian Wright, the general manager, and Coach Greg Popovich, they're in it to win it. They determined, though, for whatever the reason, and I think probably for good reason, and I always go back to the Golden State Warriors, who were homegrown, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, until they brought in Kevin Durant. If you've got good player personnel, player development, player scouting, you can find gems and develop them. And I think the Spurs, with Keldon Johnson, with DeJounte Murray, with Devin Vassell, they're doing that. And you have so many young guys, Lonnie Walker, who can develop, Trey Jones, who can develop. If just a few of those hit and are very, very good NBA players, if not superstars, they'll be fine. There you go, Robert, with your Astros. Not exact. So the Astros, Robert, way ahead of your Dodgers in the standings once again. So if they're the Astros, what does that say for your team? John, that's a very cool sidelight that you mentioned. Brian Snitker's son, Troy, being a hitting coach.
Let's get back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Find Chris and Salty on Twitter at Chris Duel and at Shannon B. Sweeney.
Welcome back. It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney as we are moving on from the Astros. It hurts. Yes, I'm bummed out. I thought we'd be talking Game 7 here today, but we're not. We covered this extensively throughout the morning. We've talked a lot of Astros, and again, congratulations to the Atlanta Braves. Nothing to dislike about them. Great players, great organization, great manager, great story. Making all the right moves during the season, getting hot at the right time, knocking off the Dodgers and the Astros. My goodness, they are very, very deserving. So cool for them. Lots that we haven't covered yet, Shannon.
It sounded so sincere. Cool for them.
Did I sound insincere? Did that sound like crap?
Cool for them.
Well, yeah,
no, it's fine because you're totally allowed to feel that way.
No, but
I know you mean it.
I do mean it.
There's still some defeat in that sense.
Yes. Okay. But I also mean, and I said this twice today, and I'll say it again. If you rooted for Atlanta for legitimate reasons, congratulations. If you rooted for Atlanta because you hate the Houston Astros, I vociferously, emphatically withhold any congratulations to you. May you have a crappy Wednesday and a crappy rest of November because you revel in your hatred. And you need to move on.
I hope you order a World Series shirt and it's one of those blank ones that was stolen.
Exactly. And if it happens, then give it to Dave Ayler. He'll be happy to wear it. Let's see. All right, Shannon, there's a lot of things that you mentioned in our show prep and our show notes, and I want to make sure that we get to it. A lot of speculation heading toward the NFL trade deadline, which was yesterday around 3. What would happen with Deshaun Watson? We now know nothing happens with Deshaun Watson. He's still a Houston Texan. Shannon, as I've said for weeks, Houston should have traded him. They need to move on, even if you get a bag of Doritos for him. I said yesterday, make it a conditional pick. If he plays for your team and does well, then you owe us something decent. If not, bag of Doritos is fine. I think he is a cloud over the Houston Texans organization as long as he's there, and apparently he's going to be there for quite some time now.
He's a cloud over the entire NFL. I mean, I really truly don't understand why he's still able to be on a roster. This is like a series that becomes a movie, a book series that becomes a movie, and then they get to the end and they're like, we're making so much money off of this and we're getting so much press. Let's split the ending into two. Because I feel like we should have arrived at the ending a long time ago here, and we still don't have the ending we want. And the ending of round one, which was the trade deadline yesterday, was a big fat nothing. We still have to wait until what seems, I guess, February is when he has his deposition to see if we actually get some movement or some sort of closure, at least feeling like we're moving towards some sort of closure, because I don't feel like we're anywhere near there yet.
Well, and I think it's kind of telling because, I mean, you and I know this, so certainly his handlers, his agent, and his legal people know this. Had there been a settlement of some kind, and we walked through his salary yesterday, which he's making about $15 million base salary this year for doing nothing for the Houston Texans. As you've mentioned, he's not been put on the commissioner's exempt list, nothing. He's just collecting money. The smart move for him would have been to settle, and there are 22 accusers, and with $15 million this year, not to mention money he might already have in the bank, you could probably have an out-of-court settlement at about $400,000 each with these women. Now, we don't know the details. There might be a number of them who say, hell no, I'm not going to settle. It's justice that I want. But you would think, Shannon, had he reached settlements with these women and moved on from it, he would have been much more easily moved. And I think these other NFL franchises would have been much more prone to make a deal for him. There's still so much we don't know. And once we get to the deposition phase, if he hasn't made a settlement, then he's going to be under oath and he's going to answer. He's got a lot of splaining to do. And we're going to hear a lot more about what really happened from his perspective and from the accuser's perspectives.
Well, and as you mentioned, settlements, there could be one, if not more, that are like, I don't want, I want to take this. I want people to know who you really are. You'd have to get all 22 to settle. And
true.
That just doesn't, again, the number of and volume that we've got going on here, it's not a good situation.
Another situation where I now think there's more going on than we ever knew. Big story yesterday, at least for us and for Cowboys fans, Jalen Smith, who was released earlier this season in season by the Dallas Cowboys. He was quickly signed by the Green Bay Packers. So we thought, all right, we'll see what he can do with Green Bay. I think it's only been a week or two, and the Green Bay Packers yesterday cut Jalen Smith. Shannon, to me, this tells me there's something going on because for whatever reason, they looked at him physically and they said, wow, we think you can help us. There's got to be something going on here that we don't know about with Jalen Smith. Two really good teams in the last, month have now cut him.
When the Cowboys did it, I think it was maybe a little bit of a it's not you, it's me situation, right? The Cowboys defense has come a long, long way from where they were last year. You got Micah Parsons, who can seemingly do it all. He may be getting a little bit gassed now that you don't have other guys and some injuries here and there, but it seemed like, we just don't need you in the way we thought we would need you. We're going to give you an opportunity elsewhere by releasing you. We're doing this for you. And then he signs with the Packers almost immediately. And now that he's been released from there, it doesn't seem like it's not you, it's me situation anymore. It really feels like it's a you situation. Still not sure what that you situation is, though, whether it's just age and play or if there is something going on off the field that we're just not aware of.
And in other news that I do want to bring up, it's a name that if you followed college football, you may know, and he's a Texas guy, played quarterback at the University of Houston. Clay Helton, who was the head coach to start the season at USC, was fired very early in the season by USC. We learned yesterday he is the new coach at Georgia Southern. Clay Helton was making about $5 million a year at USC. He had a $10 million buyout at USC, and apparently he's going to make about $800,000 now at Georgia Southern. I mean, I like Clay Helton. I've always liked him. I just didn't feel he had the gravitas or the sizzle that you need as a head coach at a big time program like USC. But my goodness, and I respect him now for not waiting a year, not getting a TV gig. He's going to go to work at Georgia Southern. I wish him the best, but my goodness, how the mighty have fallen, not only from kind of a facade or an allure or an iconic college football program from USC to Georgia Southern, but also in salary for Clay Helton. I hope they win a lot of games, and I hope it goes well for him.
Yeah, a lot of people look at it, and me included, say $800,000. That is not something to scoff at. That is a nice chunk of change.
Yeah.
But I always think of when Kobe said, when fighting for, certain salaries, even in the back half of his career, of, when you are used to living a certain lifestyle, that's very hard to adjust out of, especially if you're spending a certain amount of money. And then, so that is a pretty significant hit. And you're right. He just was never the shiny star that you need at a place like USC, Hollywood or not. USC needs a leading man in that role, and he just never fit the bill. Now, it is super interesting, though, that he's out in the middle of the season, and now he's in another middle of. Has this ever happened?
That's a great question. I don't recall it.
Like, how strange.
Well, but I also find it interesting because, like, Ed Orgeron was an interim head coach at USC and wanted the gig, and USC people decided, he's not a good fit. So he gets LSU ultimately.
Right.
I'm just surprised Clay Helton that there's an opening at Texas Tech. There's some openings. I would have thought Clay Helton might have gotten a better look or had a better opportunity. Or if I were his agent, I would have said, let's hold out for Texas Tech or another Power 5 school. I find Georgia Southern interesting that's where he wound up.
I mean, getting blown out has got to be a hit to your confidence, especially when people wanted him blown out before this season even started. And I think when you look at like a Texas Tech versus a Georgia Southern, I think job stability and longevity is probably a little bit better there, right? The fan base isn't going to get as loud based on your wins and losses as compared to a place like Texas Tech and in the Big 12, because as we saw, Matt Wells, 2.5 years?
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why when Jeff Traylor's name was being mentioned for Texas Tech, that's one of the reasons why I thought that wouldn't be a good idea. Because if you're not successful in a couple of years at Texas Tech, they can get pretty tired of you pretty quickly. So you make a great point. You want a nice paycheck for a couple of years, or do you want as long of longevity as you would like at $800,000 plus incentives per year? That's a great point. Finally, I want to make sure we get to this, Shannon. Phillip Rivers, the New Orleans Saints, they get Jameis Winston injured. Trevor Siemian is their guy currently, but some people said, hey, go get Drew Brees. Apparently Drew Brees said, nope, I'm okay now. But Phillip Rivers is out there, and some people thinking that the Saints should reach out to Phillip Rivers, and there's some new news on that front.
Yeah, apparently there are reports that Phillip Rivers said, if they called, I would listen. And we did have him at the beginning of the season saying, look, if someone called in December or January, I would pick up the phone. So I don't think that's super shocking. I think it's more shocking on the Saints side, because you have Trevor Siemian, who's been with that team the whole season and had kind of proved himself a little bit over the weekend. You are second in your division. You just beat the Bucs, so you're very much still in it to win that division and make a trip to the playoffs. So you're still playing to win. You're not playing to make sure a guy doesn't have to play just so he'll get hurt or whatever. I don't know what benefit. I don't see him coming in and like winning any more games than a Trevor Siemian would, and he's not going to be sticking around for the next year. So I don't know why you would take that into consideration.
I just think NFL pedigree, can read defenses, hunger. I mean, he's a guy who always, some people are still saying, is Phillip Rivers a Hall of Fame quarterback? And they go, no, because he's never done anything in the playoffs. I think you get a lot of hunger from Phillip Rivers, and I think he gives you a better chance to win than Trevor Siemian myself. But oh well, there's that. So Shannon, our poll question for today.
Yeah.
The college football playoff rankings came out. So we asked our listeners and viewers to categorize the college football playoff rankings. What did we learn?
Yeah, voting's tightened up here throughout the show today. 18% now saying the college football playoffs rankings are spot on. 21% saying a little bit flawed. 28% saying way off, and 31% an abomination. And you, sir, are part of that abomination crowd.
And I am part of that abomination crowd. And when we were just talking with Bill Schoening, Shannon, and I know, all of his experience calling Longhorns games for all those years, I do like, and I agree with, he wants to see an expanded playoff that would let a UTSA, a Wake Forest, a Cincinnati with an opportunity to play with the big boys. I think that's the way it should be. We do it in basketball. We do it in baseball. We should do it in football.
Agreed.
All right. We agree.
Agreed.
And this show was, and I'm a bit disappointed, fairly monkey and pole assassin free this morning.
So sorry.
We might have
No
to.
updates.
We might have to return to that. Sark is going to get some questions about that tomorrow during his press conference. Hopefully, Taylor Estes will be the one asking those questions, and we'll have an exclusive with Taylor, maybe, or not. Great show, Shannon. Let's do it again in 21 hours.
All right, I'll be here.
Dave Ayler, you here tomorrow?
No, I'm down the hall. I'll be back on Tuesday.
Oh, my God. All right. Well, we'll miss you. Dave Ayler, he's going to try to get some of those plain T-shirts that were stolen from the Astros. Have yourself a great Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow. Adios, amigos. See y'all later. Farewell. Adios. Au revoir.